A billionaire comes home early. What he sees in the next few moments stops his heart cold. His only son, once the bright, laughing child who filled every room with noise, now bound to a wheelchair, trembling, clinging desperately to the maid as she tries to steady him. Anger explodes. Accusations ignite. But the truth that follows, the boy's tears, the maid's defiance, the father's breaking heart, will upend everything you thought you knew. Before we begin, let us know in the comments what time it is, where you are, and where you're watching from. Now let's start. The house was silent, but not the kind of silence that soothes. This was a heavy silence, the kind that presses against the walls, curls under doors, and swallows voices whole. It felt like walking into a cathedral after everyone had left, like stepping into a room that remembered every sound but refused to give it back. In the far corner of the upstairs bedroom, near the tall window draped in heavy curtains, a boy sat stiffly in his wheelchair. He was only 11, yet the set of his shoulders looked far older. His fingers gripped the armrests tightly, knuckles pale as though holding onto invisible chains that kept him from drifting away. His dark eyes, shadowed and glassy, stared not at the room but through it, past the walls, past the sky beyond the glass. His lips pressed together, thin and bloodless. He didn't look at anyone anymore. He didn't want to. He whispered to himself, the words coming out in fragments, jagged and soft like broken glass. They all run, and I can't. His throat burned as he swallowed. His nails dug crescents into his palms. At school, they laughed in circles during recess, sneakers slapping the blacktop like thunder. He sat in the corner, silent, watching them spin farther and farther away. No one called his name. No one waited for him. Nobody ever did. The door creaked softly. The maid walked in, carrying a small tray she set down on the dresser. She was the one who always wore the crisp blue dress and the white apron, her dark hair pinned neatly at the nape of her neck. She stopped when she saw him sitting there in the dim light. "Malik," she said softly, her voice a quiet question. "Why are you sitting here in the dark? Did you eat?" He didn't answer. He stared harder at the window, as if the glass itself held a life he would never touch. She stepped closer, her shoes sinking soundlessly into the thick rug. "Talk to me, please." His jaw tightened. He shook his head once. "Malik," she tried again, kneeling beside him now so that her eyes were level with his. "I can't help if you keep it all inside." Something inside him cracked. He hadn't meant to speak, but suddenly his voice burst out, sharp and shaking like a snapped string. "Help? You can't help. No one can. Look at me." His hands slammed against his legs. "They're useless, dead. I'll never run. Never walk." His breath tore out of him like fire. "I'm nothing." The maid flinched at the rawness of his voice but didn't move away. She reached for his hands, steady but firm, fingers warm against his cold knuckles. "Don't say that," she murmured. "It's true," he shouted, his eyes wet now, angry tears streaking his cheeks. "At school they don't even look at me. Not one friend. Do you know what that feels like? To sit in the corner like a ghost?" He punched his thigh hard, the sound sharp in the still room. "I hate this chair. I hate myself." "Stop it!" Her voice snapped like a whip, sharper than he had ever heard from her. Her hands tightened over his fists. "Don't you dare hurt yourself. Don't you dare tell me you're nothing." He glared at her through his tears, chest heaving. "Then what am I?" She didn't hesitate. She leaned in, pulled him into her arms. For a moment he resisted, stiff as stone, his small frame trembling against her. But the warmth of her grip melted the frozen edge around him, and he sagged, his face pressed against her apron, his sobs shaking through both of them. "You're a boy with a heart that feels too much," she whispered into his hair. "That doesn't make you less. That makes you alive." He clutched at her waist as though she were the only anchor left. His voice came out muffled, broken between sobs. "I don't want to feel alive in a chair," he whispered. Just once. Let me feel what it's like, please. Make me stand." Her body froze at his words. "Malik." He lifted her throat tightened as she looked at him. His trembling lips, his wet cheeks, his desperate eyes, they were all pleading, though no sound left his mouth. She thought of his father's rules, the list of warnings posted like invisible laws throughout the house. Never push, never risk, never stand. She thought of the countless times she'd held back, obeying those rules even when Malik's eyes begged her to try. But now, here he was, this boy who had lost so much, begging with every shred of his small body. And something in her broke. Slowly, she nodded. "All right," she whispered. "Just for a moment. But you hold on tight. You hear me?" He sniffed hard and nodded, eyes bright with something between hope and fear. She rose, braced herself, and slid her hands carefully under his arms. "On 3, she murmured. 1. His fingers tightened, nails biting into her dress. 2. He gritted his teeth, his eyes squeezing shut. 3. With a strained breath, she pulled him up. His legs dangled, weak and trembling like thin branches in a winter wind. His face twisted in pain, a cry ripping from his chest as if the sound had been waiting all this time. But he was upright. For the first time in years, he was upright. His voice cracked, his whole body shaking. "I'm standing." Tears spilled fresh down his face, hot and endless. "Just a little more," she panted, holding his weight with everything she had. Her body bent forward, her arms screaming from the strain, sweat prickling her neck beneath her neat hair. "I've got you," she whispered, though her voice trembled. He sobbed against her shoulder. "It hurts." "God, it hurts!" "I know," she said quickly, her voice breaking now. "I know. But you're doing it, Malik. You're doing it." "I'm normal," he whispered, choking on the word as if afraid it would vanish if he said it too loudly. His whole body trembled, half in agony, half in triumph. His head dropped against her shoulder, tears soaking through her collar. She fought to keep him steady, her arms burning, her back straining. "Just a few seconds," she muttered to herself. Just a few more, and then the sound of a man's breath froze them both. In the doorway stood his father, a tall figure in a cream suit, his face dark with shock, his eyes wide with disbelief. His fists clenched at his sides like two stones ready to break. The boy's sobs filled the silence. The maid's arms quivered under his weight. The father's voice came out like ice. "What the hell are you doing with my son?" The maid froze, arms still locked around Malik, who clung to her waist, trembling. "Sir," she began, her throat tight, but he cut her off, stepping into the room. His polished shoes struck the hardwood floor like thunderclaps. "I told you!" he spat. "I told everyone in this house never to risk him. And here you are, dragging him out of his chair like some reckless fool." His eyes burned with fury. "Do you want to break him? Do you want him crippled for life?" "Dad!" Malik cried, his voice cracking. "Stop yelling." The man's eyes flicked to his son. For half a second, they softened. Then they hardened again, shutters slamming closed. "You could have fallen," he said, his voice still like iron. "Do you even realize what could have happened?" "I asked her," Malik shouted. His tears smeared down his cheeks like ink. "I begged her to help me." "You don't listen to me. You never do." The father's breath caught, but his anger only grew sharper. "You don't know what's good for you, Malik. That's why I protect you. That's why you lock me up." Malik's voice rose to a scream that shook the room. "You lock me up in this chair. You treat me like glass. Do you know what it feels like to sit at school and watch everyone else run and laugh while you're invisible? They don't talk to me, Dad, not one of them. I'm nothing to them. Just the boy who can't walk." His words stabbed through the room like knives. The maid's arms trembled as she slowly lowered him back into the wheelchair. He was limp, spent, his head dropping forward, his chest heaving as if he had run a race. "I didn't want to be nothing today," he whispered, voice barely audible. "I just wanted to feel normal for once. Just for a few seconds." The father's face cracked like a mask under pressure, but still he shook his head, refusing to let go of his anger. "Normal?" he snapped. "You could have hurt yourself." "You could have—" The maid's voice cut through his words, sharp but trembling. "Fierce?" The maid's voice cracked, but her words struck with fire. "Hurt himself? Sir, don't you see? He hurts every single day. sitting by that window, staring out at a world he's convinced he'll never touch. Going to a school where no one speaks to him, where no one even tries. Living in a house where even his own father looks at him like a mistake waiting to happen. The man's head jerked toward her. His jaw tightened, his eyes ignited with rage. "Careful," he warned, his tone like steel, but she stood her ground. Her knees trembled, her chest rose and fell quickly, yet her voice grew stronger. "No, I won't be quiet." The silence stretched, thick and dangerous, but she pressed on, her words trembling with conviction. "You're rich enough to buy the world 100 times over, but all that wealth can't give him the one thing he needs: hope. Do you know what it's like to watch a boy beg, not for toys, not for money, but just for the chance to feel like everyone else?" Her voice broke, but she forced herself to continue. "He begged me, sir. And do you know what I saw when he looked at me? Not a reckless child, not a weak one. Just a boy who wanted to feel alive." "And you call that dangerous?" The room went utterly still. Malik's small voice broke the quiet, fragile but sharp as glass. "Dad." The man turned slowly, his heart thudding in his chest. "I don't want to be your broken son anymore," Malik whispered. His lips quivered, his eyes shimmering with hurt. "I just want you to see me. Not the chair, me." The father's chest rose and fell heavily, unevenly. His throat burned as if the air itself resisted him. His eyes glistened, though he blinked hard to fight it back. For the first time in years, he looked at his boy, really looked. Not at the chair, not at the weakness, not at the shadow of what he feared, but at his son. He looked at the maid, too, standing beside him, trembling but unyielding, braver than he himself had been in a very long time, and something inside him gave way. Slowly, as though his legs weighed 1,000 pounds, he dropped to his knees in front of the wheelchair. His hand hovered, then reached forward, hesitant, trembling, until it closed over Malik's small hand. "I see you," he whispered, his voice breaking on the words. His other hand rose to cover his face, but he pushed it away. "No more hiding. I see you, son. I was so afraid of losing you that I forgot how to live with you. I forgot to let you try. Forgive me." Malik's lips trembled. Then, with a cry that shattered the wall between them, he threw his thin arms around his father's neck. His sobs broke into his father's shoulder, raw and desperate. "I just wanted you to be proud of me," Malik choked, his voice shaking. The father held him tighter, pressing his face into his son's hair, his own tears spilling freely now, unchecked and unhidden. His suit, his power, his pride, none of it mattered here. Only this boy did. "I've always been proud," he whispered fiercely. "Always. I didn't know how to show it. Forgive me, Malik. Forgive me." The maid stood back, her breath shaking, tears streaking down her cheeks. She had never intended to speak so boldly, never dared to believe she could challenge him this way. But looking at the father and son clinging to each other, she didn't regret a single word. The man looked up at her, still clutching his boy as if he might vanish if he let go. His face, once hard with fury, now sagged heavy with guilt and sorrow. "Thank you," he said hoarsely, his voice rough with tears. "Thank you for giving him what I was too afraid to give." She lowered her eyes, her voice soft. "He only wanted a moment." The father nodded, pulling his son even closer, his jaw tight with new resolve. "Then from now on," he said, "he'll have more than moments. He'll have chances, real ones." "I promise you, Malik." The boy sniffed hard, pressing his cheek against his father's chest. His small hands clutched at the fabric of his suit. For the first time in a very long time, he let himself believe it. He wasn't invisible. He wasn't broken. He was seen, and for once, he felt alive.